Yes, greetings. It is I, MariK.
And welcome back to another Dragon Ball Super video. Over the past weekend, we took first place once again at our locals, and we did it with a deck that, honestly, I haven't seen do too well anywhere. Not since the good old days of Set 2, even after we got some of the support for this. And we went with everybody's favorite villain,
Cell.
Rejoice, my brother and sister. The three of us are like pieces to a puzzle, designed and destined to fit together and form one whole.
He's got a great activate main once per turn. Place one card from your hand under this card, choose one of your opponent's battle cards, energy 3 or less, and KO that card. So not too bad. It's pretty much you can KO a card anytime you want to in the early stages of the game. When he awakens, draw 2 cards. I really don't like the draw 2. I would rather have the untap, but with this leader, the draw 2 was kind of helpful, whereas we didn't really need the extra energy due to some of the cards we played in the deck. But he awakens, it turns into Ultimate Life Form Cell. And Cell is a perfect example of what they were doing right with leaders before they went to set 3 and started doing the attack a leader draw card. His activate main says, once per turn, place one card from under your hand, draw 2 cards. Already, right there, an ability that is not like any other that we had at the time. His second activate main says, place 2 cards from under this card in your drop area, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and KO that card. Notice he does not have an auto. He does not do anything on attack. Leaders had become so bland with all of their abilities, and comparatively, the leaders in set 1 and 2 were just so much more fantastic. Up first, we ran everyone's favorite evil scientist, Dr. Giro.
Idiot! You won't even tread water against what I'm creating.
He's a 1-cost 5,000 that says when you play this card, look it up to 3 cards from the top of your deck, choose up to one android, and add it to your hand. Now, I like this card so much better than the Android 20 that we had in Set 2, because this also lets you pick a Cell. Although Android 20 does let you search your deck for anything, you can't pick Cell, and he's a 2-drop. And I really like that Dr. Giro is a 1-cost, because it actually gave us a good 1-cost to play for starting out on our first turn. The next card is a card that it seems has been all but abandoned by pretty much everybody in the game, along with the Cell leader, is Cell's Birth. It's a field card that says, if your leader is Cell, reduce the energy cost of all Cell in your hand by 2. When you play Cell, place this card in the drop area. So essentially it lets you play the 3 costs for 2, because you play 1 energy for this, and then 1 energy for the 3 cost. Of course, if you play this on a separate turn, like maybe you don't open Giro and you just play this on your first turn, then on your next turn, Cell is a 1-cost, which is fantastic. I run these just because it lets you play around with Cell a little more, and it lets you decide how you want to use the Cell chain, or if you even want to use the Cell chain at all. And you can only use it with the Cell leader, but honestly, I think with this deck, the Android 17 leader would have done absolutely nothing for us in the long run. So, of course, then we have the star of the show, Growing Evil Lifeform Cell.
I have sniffed the bouquet, and now it is time to drink.
He's a 3-cost 15,000 with Union Absorb. It says place 1 Android 17 from your hand under this card. Choose up to 1 Cell with an energy cost of 5 or less from your deck and place it on top of this card. Then shuffle your deck. So you choose an Android 17, and for no energy other than the fact that you already played the card, and then you get to evolve him into any 5-drop Cell, which there's currently 4 different 5-drop iterations of Cell, 2 of which are promos from tournament packs, and they're really just not that great. Some people used to use them during the Cell reign of Set 2, but honestly, they're just not that great. So when you play this Cell, you're going to place a 17 underneath him, and one of my favorite Android 17s to run is Chilling Terror Android 17.
Android 17, amazingly efficient.
He's a 3-cost 15,000 that says, if your leader is an android, the opponent cannot draw cards when their leader card activates. Awaken. But they can still activate their Awaken. So they get to Awaken, and they don't get to draw the 2 cards. I actually forced a few opponents this weekend to Awaken without getting that draw, because this Android 17 is just so good, and without removal, there's no way you can stop him from staying on the board. Also, the art is fantastic. The foiling is ridiculous because it's a tournament pack. This is still probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite card in the game. Then we also ran 4 Dreadful Duo Android 17. He's another 3 cost, 15,000 with critical. His activate main says once per turn for 1 green. During that turn, and if opponent's battle card with an energy cost of 3 or less has been placed in the drop area from any area by one of your opponent's skills, choose up to 1 Android 18 with an energy cost of 3 or less from your hand and play it. Now, we never really used this ability. I don't even know. I think I may have played him 1 game out of the entire day. And I can't even remember what it was. I think I was just trying to push for some extra damage after I had cell chained. But this one doesn't really see play. He's just in there just in case I needed him. But more often than not, if I'm going to play an Android 17 on the board, it's going to be Chilling Terror. Absorbs Android 17. He transforms into Evolving Evil Lifeform Cell.
Ah, new look. Much more comely than the last.
He's a 5 cost with 20,000 power. He has Union Absorb that says place 1 Android 18 from your hand under this card. Choose up to 1 cell from your deck and place it on top of this card. Now you can choose any cell, so if you wanted to, you could choose himself, or you can choose any other cell. So any of the other 5 drops or the 7 drop. He has Double Strike, and when you play this card with Union, you draw 1 card and then choose one of your opponent's battle cards and KO it. No energy restriction, nothing. Like, Cell is just so good. And then he draws a card to replace the Android 17 that you placed under Cell's first stage. Now, if you're not going for the Cell chain, the Ultimate box that just came out over the past weekend gave us a new Cell card that we could use in Vile Replication Cell. He's also a 5 cost, 20,000 power. However, his auto says when you play this card, if your leader card is an android, draw 2 cards and play 2 Cell Junior tokens. They have 10,000 power, 0 combo cost, and 5,000 combo power. And we also got the Cell Junior tokens in the Ultimate box as well. This is a really nice card to play early on when you aren't ready to Cell chain, or if they just don't have enough cards worth, for it to be worthwhile. This card is really fantastic. It's got 20,000 power. It lets you draw 2 cards. It's just, overall, it's just good. And you can use the 2 tokens to defend yourself. They're like free Sensu Beans whenever the hell you want to use them. I love this cell, and this cell saw a lot of play over the weekend. Now, after playing Evolving Evil Lifeform Cell, you're going to need to place an Android 18 underneath him to evolve him into his final form. So for that, we ran 4 Dreadful Duo Android 18.
And 18, poetry in motion.
She's a 3 cost, 15,000 with critical. Once returned during that turn, if an opponent's battle card with an energy cost of 4 or more is placed in the drop area from any area by one of your skills, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards with energy cost 3 or less and KO that card. That ability is useless, but she is in here because we need Android 18s and she's got crit, so in the event that we ever needed to play one, then she was there for that. We also ran 2 Twin Sister Android 18. She's a 3 cost, 15,000. Once per turn, when this card attacks, you may place 1 card from your hand in the drop area. If you do so, choose up to 1 Android 17 in your battle area and switch it to active mode. Again, she was just in there because we need the Android 18 target. Now, I love the 5-drop Android 18 from set 2, but it was not worth running her just because we weren't really going to play either of them. They were just going to be evolve fodder, and in the case that we had one in hand to combo with, we wanted it to be the 0 cost to combo. After absorbing Android 18, Cell transforms into the ultimate fighting machine. Perfect for Cell.
Now, you die!
This is still probably one of the best, if not the best, SPR foiling that we have gotten out of all the sets we have. He's a 7 cost, 30,000 power with Double Strike, and you can evolve him for 2 green and 4 other if you chose to do so, but you're always going to get him out via the Cell chain. When you play this card, if your leader card is an android, your opponent must choose cards in their hand until there are only 3 remaining and place the chosen cards in the drop area. So when your opponent has a lot of cards in hand, you're going to go from the 3 to the 5 to this form and make them pitch all that hand advantage. I actually did that to one of my opponents this weekend, and he had 14 cards in hand and dropped down to 3. And doesn't feel good for them, but feels fantastic for me. Not to mention him being 30,000 and double strike. Like, there's not a lot of cards that people play anymore that are going to be able to attack over that. And that's also a lot of damage that you're going to have to combo out of pretty heavily to be able to stop it if you don't have any blockers or negates. Then, of course, we have my favorite super combo, Stout-Hearted Android 16.
Wow. Who's this one?
His stats are irrelevant because he's a super combo. You're never going to play him. When you combo with this card, if your leader card is a green android and your life is 4 or less, your opponent chooses one card from their hand and places it in the drop area, and then the card gains 10,000 combo power. What's so great about this card is you cell chain your opponent, then you attack with him or the leader or any other card you have on the board, and then you combo your Stout-Hearted 16s and make them pitch the remaining cards they have in their hand. I did this to my round 3 opponent playing Lineage, and I cell chained him, and then I played a Relentless Destruction Neera. We run 4 of these. He's a 3-cost 15,000 that you overwhelm if you have 3 or more in your drop area, and when you play this card using overwhelm, your opponent chooses a card in their hand and places it in the drop area. So essentially you cell chain them, you play this card, make them drop another card, and then you combo your 16s to make them pitch the rest of them. It is a disgusting combination, and I absolutely love it. Now, I had originally planned to play all four of the cell cards. However, my teammate could not locate his cell pieces, and so we ended up having to improvise, so I threw in 2 Create Android.
Those are the blueprints for my ultimate android.
It's not that bad. We did end up playing it. The reason I don't like Create Android is because it is just a break even. So that's why I prefer to run more of the Dr. Giro than the Create Android, because at least the Dr. Giro gets you a +1. The Create Android does allow you to do some stuff, though. I did use it more or less to draw some stuff, but also to fuel my drop to play Neera. If your leader card is an android, draw 2 cards, and you place a card from your hand in the drop area. So between the card you drop and this card itself, that's an additional 2 cards in the drop area that you can play for that Neera. It also lets you get rid of cell chain pieces that you don't want to keep in your hand. But between discarding them with Create Android, charging them for energy, and placing them under the cell leader for its abilities, you're never really going to have dead cards in your hand. Then lastly, we play 4 full power energy. We're running a green deck, so there's no reason not to main this. This card has picked up ridiculous popularity with all the 1-drops running around between the Bardoks, the Crit Gohan, the Crit Trunks, the 1-drop Kabas. It's just ridiculous. So we main decked 4 of these to be able to deal with those threats. Now for our side deck, we took into consideration some of the cards we were running and how they may not be helpful against all opponents. And we also took into consideration what is currently popular to play in the meta right now. And so the first card that we side decked is 4 Energy Guard Android 17. We would swap out the Chilling Terror for the Energy Guard Android 17 if the opponent's leader didn't draw an Awaken but untapped. He's a 3-cost 15,000 with blocker, and at the end of the turn you switch him to active mode. So he can also attack and then be a blocker. Again, we really didn't play a whole lot of androids during the day. However, in the case that we needed a blocker, for example against a card like Victory Strike Goku or some other bullshit, having a blocker when we couldn't activate negates or counters was a really good side deck option for us. Next up, in the event that we didn't play against the deck that spammed the shit out of all the 1-drops, we ran 4 Speedy Surprise Attack. So the idea was if the opponent didn't play a lot of 1-drops, or if they knew you were playing full power, then game 2, play this card, which is essentially the same thing, but on a better scale. You negate the attack. If your leader is an android, you can place 1 card from your hand in the drop area. If you do so, choose an opponent's battle card with an energy cost of 3 or less and KO it. So you do have to discard, but you KO up to 3 energy. So it's better, but not better, because it lets you target other things, but you do have to discard. With Cell, you never have a problem with keeping up card advantage, though. I think we played this maybe twice throughout the day yesterday. We did side in a few times, but we never end up using the discard ability to KO something. There was just no point. Then for those instances where you're playing against an opponent that keeps cards in active mode, or there are cards that have barrier that you're trying to get around, then we side decked in 3 Burst Energy Super Saiyan Bardock. He's a Overwhelm 4 for 1 energy, he's got 20,000 power, and when you play this card using Overwhelm, it gains 10,000 power for the duration of the turn and can attack battle cards in active mode. So if they're setting up things for their own evolves, their own chains, anything with barrier that you want to get rid of, or, you know, blockers that are going to be a pain in the ass, Bardock comes in and just smashes all of them to pieces. Absolutely love this card. I side it in every deck ever since it came out. Lastly, with the influx of all these Super Saiyan 3 leader decks running around, all the flute combos, we thought of no better card to run than Forced Ejection Mass Saiyan. Now, this would be a situational card for sure. However, you could easily take advantage of this card's ability as well. You overwhelm him for 3 for 1 energy, and his activate main says, once per turn, if you have placed a card in your energy area during your turn, and you have less energy than your opponent, choose one of your opponent's energy and send it to their warp. So this is a perfect counter to Super Saiyan 3. Now, I don't condone main decking it, just because it's really going to be a dead card a lot of the times. But if you're going into game 2, you have option. You can choose to make them go first. They get 1 less draw, you get an extra draw, you can charge, and then at that point, you're always going to be lower on energy. And so then you can play this card and drop them back down to your level whilst also warping one of their cards away. And if you can keep doing this over and over again, then you can stall out your opponent and they can't make any of their plays because they can't get the energy to play some of their bigger cards. I won't say it's the best counter to Super Saiyan 3, but it is a nice option if you can play it properly. So round 1, we played against our God Squad teammate again. Seems to always be the case. He was running mono red hand control, and it's kind of funny because for a deck that likes to make you discard, likes to keep their hand relatively low, and then for my deck that likes to make them discard and let them not have a hand, it kind of helps them out in a way. But it wasn't too hard to play around. We just didn't really cell chain because there wasn't any point. So we put all of our focus on always bringing out file replication so that we got the +2, so that we got the 2 Cell Junior tokens, and that built up card advantage over and over again despite the opponent making us drop cards out of our hand. So we ended up taking round 1. Round 2, we ended up playing against Red-Blue Hirudegarn, and I really hate how good that leader is. It's pretty ridiculous. But we figured out a good way to play against him, and we built up his hand advantage. He also, you know, pitched in a little bit. And then once he got his hand up to like 13, 14 cards, here comes the Cell Birth, here comes the 3-drop Cell for 1, and then we're just going right into the chain and making you pitch everything. And then at that point, we just have to make the decision not to bother to try and do enough damage to you if we know we can't win. So it was kind of like a form of control without really playing any control cards. We controlled the flow of the game because our opponent didn't have the resources to be able to do much against us. We ended up taking that round as well, and then round 3 we played against Goku's Lineage, which is still a super fun deck, but it is a bit of a problem when we can't pop half of the opponent's battle cards because they have barrier. And he was smart. He played the 2-drop Gohan that had barrier. He played the 3-drop Goku that had barrier. And then, of course, the 4-drop Gohan that also has barrier. And there wasn't really a way to get around what he was doing. Same thing with the 5-drop Apex Goku from the starter deck. Also has barrier. It blows up a card. It's got double strike. But Cell Chain just murders. And when you drop them from 14 cards to 3, play a Neera, drop them to 2, and then swing with your leader and make them pitch 2 more cards via the Android 16 super combos, they have nothing. They have no resources whatsoever. And when you've built up so much hand advantage like that, especially with cards like the 1-drop Bardock giving you a card from life, and the BCC Goten giving you more card advantage from draws, that hurts, and there's really not much way to come back from that. So we ended up taking that round as well, went undefeated, took first place with your boy Cell. Do I think Cell is competitive in the current meta? Yes, I do. I think if you play him right and you can predict what your opponent's going to do and attempt to outplay them, yes, I think Cell is a very viable deck. I like Android 17. I like the Android leader. But if you're going for Cell, if you're going for the Cell chain, then the Android leader is irrelevant. Besides awakening at 6 life instead of 4, so you can get those draws a little earlier, that's it. That's really all he's doing. And he reduces your Android 17 18s, but again, you're not here to play Android 17 18. You're here to drop Cell consistently every single turn. By turn 2, you want to sell. By turn 2, you want to have a Cell's Birth and a 3-drop Cell. And if they have ridiculous card advantage, you go into the chain. If they don't, you bring out the Vile Replication, you get your +2, you get your tokens, you're set for a turn. Then on your next turn, you're now at 3 energy. You can play Cell without Cell's Birth, but if you have it, you can play it again, and you've got an open energy for either Create Android or for your negates, and it's just, you should be focusing on Cell. So I think the Cell leader is better for a Cell deck, but I won't say that he's better than Androids overall. I think that's a hard call to make, especially considering I have played both, and I like both of them equally. They just do different things. But that's going to be it for our Cell deck profile. If you guys enjoyed, if you are a fellow Cell or Android fan like I am, hit that like button down below for us. You know, we appreciate all the support we've been getting, especially on all Dragon Ball content. We appreciate all of our viewers and our subscribers. We were at 959 the last time I checked, which is fantastic. We are so close to getting that partnership back for the 3rd time. And it means so much to us that you are just here to support us and to follow us on this journey of greatness. We're going to go ahead and get the freak out of here, though. So we'll see you guys in the next video.